I like shooting film, and if you're watching this, you probably do too. But one issue with them is that when you run a film camera, it makes sound, and that can be a problem for microphones as sensitive as they are today. So how do we defeat that? Well, one way is with a Barney, a leather covering that supposedly blocks the sound that comes out of the camera. The issue is that only so many were made. They're hard to find nowadays, if you can find them at all. And if you can, they're often expensive because they're rare. The other problem with Barneys as they were made, the problem I can't quite get over, is that it's just a leather covering filled with cotton. I think I have a better idea. If I was going to make a Barney, it would need to block the sound. And to block sound or absorb sound, what you need is mass. Now, we don't have infinite volume, so for higher mass, we need density. So the first layer of this Barney would be memory foam, shredded memory foam that we could form around. This would absorb some frequencies of the sound, as well as scatter it just a bit. The second layer would be a dense dampening foam, the kind that they use in cars to quiet engines when you're in the cab. This would be foil backed and also have adhesive on the other side. And the final layer, to block, reflect, and absorb as much sound as possible, would be the densest element on the periodic table that I was taught in school, lead. Now, according to some very helpful people at Yahoo Answers, this tri-layer design should be able to block all sound in the known universe. So now that we have our concept, let's run down the list of supplies that you'll need to make this dream a reality. For the exterior of this Barney, I've chosen a faux leather off of Amazon.com. You'll also need some spray adhesive to keep the shredded foam in place while you're sewing. The shredded foam is standard shredded memory foam, also off of Amazon.com, which, if you haven't tried, is fantastic. For this project, I bought 2 pounds as it was the least amount I was allowed to buy. Next, you'll need a sound dampening mat or sound insulation mat, sold usually under the automotive section. Try to get the highest thickness that you can. The kind that I was able to purchase came roughly 1 centimeter thick. And of course, you'll need a roll of raw lead. I was able to purchase a 1/32 of an inch thick roll, which worked out to be roughly 1 millimeter, which seemed good enough. I wanted enough to absorb the sound, but not so thick that I wasn't able to cut it or that it would make the Barney heavier than the camera itself. Additionally, you will need some thick wax thread that is used for sewing leather and leather needles. And for fastening the front panels, I needed some Gorilla Glue as well as regular Velcro strips, not the industrial strength. Finally, I chose some weatherproofing spray for the exterior of the Barney once it was finished to protect it from the elements. In total, all of the materials set me back about $100 with free shipping, so cheaper than buying an existing Barney off of eBay, with the added potential of possibly performing better, maybe. For the design of the Barney, I started with paper panels cut to shape and forming a shell outside of my camera, knowing that each one of those pieces of paper would be a panel that I would create out of the 3 layers I was putting together. They would each be sewn into their own leather pocket, and then finally for assembly, each of those leather pieces would be sewn together and then turned inside out. I made sure the shell would cover the camera as much as possible, wrapping around the front as much as I could get it, and reaching past the base plate of the camera itself, leaving enough room for a control box and the power connector. I also wanted to make sure there was extra padding on the left-hand side. That's where the camera gear meets the magazine gear and where most of the noise is created. I knew that sound acted a lot like water and would find any way out of the Barney that it could, so in sewing it together, I tried to make sure that the panels that I had put inside the leather almost touched as closely as possible around the seams. So this is how it came out. Not bad. It kind of looks like the first football ever, or Bart Starr's helmet, or the main character from the film nobody saw called 9. Not bad for my first time ever sewing, but we need to see if it actually works, or if I wasted 3 days of my life. First, let's get a baseline. Without the Barney, the camera sounds like the air conditioner in Brave Little Toaster that tried to hang itself in front of his friends. averaging a spiky 42.9 decibels. Obviously, there would be some sort of background sound involved there, and with the phone taking the readings resting on a table, there may be some residual vibrations coming through the floor from my neighbors, whom I hate. Let's see if we can improve on that. Was that better? Technically, yes. Averaging 39.7 decibels, my app says that is like a whisper, which is still not something you want to have happen while you're rolling. But the other thing I noticed is that the average line on the decibel meter is a lot less spiky. It's more muted. So besides absorbing a very little amount of sound, it seems to have evened it out a bit more, which in post might be easier to get rid of or might be less distracting on set. Really, I'm looking for any way to justify what I've done and that I haven't wasted 3 days and pissed off my wife. In the end, was it worth it? Maybe. Was it worth it to the point of saving myself $450? Probably.